Ladies and gentlemen, we have just landed at Kuala Lumpur International Airport.
Attention please.
Today's guest is Victor Chua, founder and managing partner of Vynn Capital and chairman of Malaysian Venture Capital and Private Equity Association. Hi, Victor. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure for me to be on the same call with you.
Yeah, great to have you here. I think you are the one of the youngest person who founded a venture capital fund and then run the international investment activity in Asia.
Thank you very much. Well, I guess in a way, because I'm relatively younger, that's why I guess I'm just a bit more bold and not thinking too much about the consequences, I suppose.
That sounds like you have upside and downside at the same time, right?
Yes, exactly. I mean,
Right.
investment life is all about pros and cons, up and down.
Right.
So it's a matter of how do you manage it and how do you actually, find your way to make sure that you do the right things and be in a way be responsible for whatever decision you make.
Right. I saw your profile, professional profile briefly. Looks like you are the very, very energetic person. You are doing a lot of things, right? Serving on the board of so many companies, right?
Well, though some of the actually a lot of them were my old board positions when I was in my previous fund. But at this point of time, out of the 5 investments that we have made, I'm on the board of 4 of them. So it's busy. On top of that, I still have some work with the government as well. I'm on some council for the government. So it's hectic. It's
Right.
also very challenging.
Yes.
But I guess for me, that's why it is an advantage for me to start out young,
Right.
relatively younger than most of our other peers and seniors,
that
because
makes
I will
sense.
still have energy.
You're still energy, eh?
Yes. I mean, I don't have a kid yet, so I don't have to chase my kid around, so I can
Right.
conserve my energy for my work.
Yeah. Also, you are the chairman of Malaysian Venture Capital Association?
Yes. For the time being,
Wow.
I am. I mean, this is my 3rd year.
Right, big job.
Thank you. Yes. It's a very interesting position to be in.
Right.
It's a very eye-opening role as well. That's where I actually started to expose myself to a lot of the government-related work, which is good because
Yes,
as
I think
an
I
investor,
guess
you need
so.
to have that.
Right. If you focus on investment all the time, running the process and filling the analysis template, then you become very inside focused, right? But
Yes.
if you act as like a very active in those kind of community, working with, interacting with a lot of investor and the venture capital association, especially as a leader, I can imagine it. You can keep the very good balance between the inside focus and external focus as well, right?
Exactly. And I think as a VC, it's also very important to know enough about everything, because you never know when a particular type of knowledge or information would be very useful for your work or for your investees or for your LPs as well. So I think it's an advantage to be able to get taps into so many areas where any of this work could potentially be useful in the future, because you never know what you can expect for the future anyway, and
Right.
it's all about having the right preparation to make sure that you have the tools when you need the tools when the time comes.
Right. Yeah, I think venture capital. My career has been with like corporate financing investment field mostly. So I think that's a very easy job, running the number, running the spreadsheet, and then check the financial, and then check about the company's positioning in the market. And credit is weak, we ask for the additional collateral. So very simple math job, but what you're doing is you need to understand human being and universe, I guess.
Thanks. Well, I mean, it's a different role. I think without your skill set as well, it's going to be difficult to get any deal structured. So it's a matter of having enough diversity in the partnerships in the ecosystem that you have.
Yeah. So were you born and raised in Kuala Lumpur?
Not in Malaysia for sure, but I was born in the northern part of Malaysia.
Penang?
No, Ipoh actually. I'm not sure if you know
Ipoh, yeah, I've been to Ipoh. Many famous person from the Ipoh, in fact, right?
Oh, yes.
The ladies, who is that? Crazy rich Asian. That role of the mother, right? She's from the Ipoh, right?
Yeah, actually, she was in the same school as my mom.
Wow. Small world, right?
Yeah, small
She was a
world.
Bond girl a long time ago, right? James
Yes,
Bond
long
girl.
time ago. I think there was
Right.
Pierce Brosnan time. So
That,
yes.
that was amazing. I mean, when I visit Ipoh is very, very small town, but I see a lot of people, even among my friends who are very active with semiconductor investment and banking in Singapore, US, they are from Ipoh. So
Oh,
Ipoh may have something special, right?
yeah,
For the
maybe the
good,
water or
good
something.
talent.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, somehow a lot of us came from Ipoh. Even in KL, a lot of the people that I know of, well, they're also from Ipoh as well.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, or your journey to the founding of Vynn Capital?
Sure, sure. Happy to do so. So I founded Vynn Capital back in 2018, February. I think it was 1 or 2 days before Valentine's Day. Well, that's when we had our official TechCrunch announcement. So it's been about 2 years ish as Vynn Capital. But prior to Vynn Capital, I was actually the vice president for Gobi Partners. So one of the Chinese venture capital firm which expanded to Southeast Asia. So I was handling the Southeast Asia investment strategy to work directly with the founding partner of Gobi on managing the Southeast Asia portfolio. So I was with them for about 4 years. So I went through a few of the exits and did probably about 24, 25 investments for Gobi before starting Vynn Capital. Prior to Gobi, I was actually with a local fund management company in Malaysia called MAVCAP. MAVCAP is a government-owned VC, which is wholly owned by the Ministry of Finance. They are reporting directly to the Ministry of Science and Technology. So MAVCAP was the part of my journey where I started to explore myself as a venture capitalist. So that's how I joined the industry. Prior to being a VC, I was actually with a consulting firm called Willis Towers Watson. I think a bit similar to your background, where I was actually in fund management from a perspective of trying to work with large funds, institutional funds, pension funds, insurance funds as well, on helping them to do asset allocation. But it's more of a fund of fund perspective, where I was helping my clients like EP4 in Malaysia, and I do work with certain international banks that has a pension fund portfolio as well, where we help them to look at which are the fund managers that they should invest into and what kind of assets should they invest, whether it's equities, bonds, etc. So that was my first job. But along the way, in between my journey from a consultant to an actual VC, I did explore to become an entrepreneur as well. So I actually had my own startup. Well, back then we don't even call it startup. This was the time where cloud computing and cloud services were not there yet. There was no such thing as AWS in Malaysia. So that was when the time I founded my edutech company, but unfortunately it didn't expand well enough. We didn't manage to grow the company further. That's why there's a saying that if you fail to become an entrepreneur, you become a VC instead. So that's why I'm a VC right now. So fast forward to where we are at right now. I'm glad that Vynn Capital, after more than 2 years, we are still around. We are still investing. In fact, we're actually getting more active this year with our investment strategy, and I think we're still talking to a lot more friends and partners that we can collaborate together. We're having more support for the firm, and yes, we are happy to share our journey with everyone else who's listening to the podcast and who's interested in us as well.
Got you. I look at your website and then description of the Vynn Capital, the focus. It says that the Vynn Capital focus on startup in travel, property, FMCG, logistic, property, and female-focused economics.
Yeah.
It sounds quite unique to me. So what are the correlations or similarity about these sector and businesses?
Sure. So I need to understand a bit more about our strategy. Maybe let me explain.
Why don't you tell us about
Sure.
the Vynn Capital? Strike zone in terms of strategy, sectors, and then stage, etc., etc.
Definitely. So for in terms of our region or our geographical focus, it's always about Southeast Asia. But of course, we do look at companies that are not from Southeast Asia, but looking at expanding or have already expanded into Southeast Asia, because we think that Southeast Asia is a playground that we are familiar with. And at the same time, we focus on early stage. Early stage, it means seed to Series A. I think for this region, the upside is where you invest into early stage companies, because right after this, there'll be a lot of Series B, C funds, growth capital, PE funds who would be able to come and take over the companies. So that's why we wanted to focus on early stage. Now, to look at our strategy, I think maybe let me explain it from a point of view of how we try to differentiate ourselves from our peers in the industry. If you're familiar with Southeast Asia, we are seeing a growth in the venture capital market in Indonesia, in Thailand, in Singapore as well. Whereas other markets are trying to catch up to those growth. So for us, we differentiate ourselves by doing two things. First of all, by being a sector specialist, which is the four key areas that you just spoke of. And second differentiation that we have is by identifying these industries which we believe we have strong value add, and at the same time, there are synergy across those industries. For us, we see that Southeast Asia will eventually become a big block of combined economies, which is why travel and mobility, this is one of the key industry that will continue to grow in the next few decades. Hence, we started by looking at the whole travel landscape. But of course, when we look at travel, it doesn't just mean your OTA, your typical travel tech startups. It's also about how do we get products and services from one market to another market. So in other words, the cross-border opportunity. So that's what we mean by travel. But what is also interesting about that particular industry is that it allows a company to be able to synergize that with another sector. For example, property tech works hand in hand with the travel sector. It's just like how we invested into a company in Indonesia called Travelio. They started off like an Airbnb, but eventually they evolved to become more like an Oyo, where they are also managing properties as well, to manage the spaces that are idle. So travel and property sector will go hand in hand. It's just like how Airbnb has changed the property landscape. And then when we move on to FMCG or food, it's an integral part of lifestyle. It's an integral part of the whole travel equation. That's why we also look at of FMCG. Last but not least, if you actually zoom into the whole travel and mobility landscape, more than half of the population of the workforce are actually women. So if our thesis is about growth in the whole travel and mobility landscape in Southeast Asia, we believe that ladies or female would have a higher propensity to spend, and the expenditure amongst female consumers is going to be much higher than men, which is why we actually focus on that sector as well. All in all, we think that these four sectors are correlated. When we invest, we always look at how a company in one sector could eventually expand into an adjacent vertical, which is what we believe would be the key synergistic value that we can provide when we have a few of our portfolio companies in multiple sectors, or maybe in the same sector but different segment, to come in to work together as a family.
I got you. I understand better now. And let me ask next question. I briefly mentioned that I'm familiar with the corporate banking, corporate investment, structural finance business. So I always thought we don't need the smart people from the banking, because a very simple job, running a spreadsheet and check the financial. If the financial is not strong enough, we can ask for collateral. And also we can make a judgment within 10 minutes, right? With all the information at hand, we can run the number. But always, about the job of a venture capitalist, how do you identify the right startup and entrepreneurs without the substantially huge operation in the beginning, right? You can see only the business plan or business model, and people talk about the people are more important, entrepreneur very important. The question is how do you identify right startup, right entrepreneur for your investment? Do you have any checklist on your hand?
Yes, we definitely have a sort of typical investment checklist that we do follow through. But I think ultimately, as cliche as it sounds, people is the key factor of success in any early stage or any venture capital investments. The only tool that we have is actually time. So from our perspective, when we look at an investment opportunity, the first thing that we always do is not to rush into a deal. As exciting as a company can be seen, there would be a lot of hidden or blind spots that might occur. So what we always do is to maintain a strong relationship with the entrepreneurs, with the founders, even before they start fundraising and even before they qualify for our investment check size or stage. So that's where we talk to as many entrepreneurs as possible. We get connected to as many different networks as possible because we want to know potential investees even before they become a potential investee. So that's the main way that I look at deals. We definitely want to be able to talk to the companies because at the end of the day, Vynn, we don't look at ourselves as purely an investor into the companies. We look at ourselves as partners to those companies. And by being a sector specialist, that provides us with more competitive advantage when we look at a company. It means that we will only invest in the deal when we think that we can provide value add. And when we can provide value add, it means that we are able to understand the industry much better than other co-investors or other investors. And hence, we are much better in deciding on whether the founders are telling us the truth or not. So I think from that perspective, I think being a sector specialist, an industry specialist, helps a lot when it comes to being able to sort out, to sniff out the best deals that are in the market.
Gotcha. So please tell us a little bit about your fund and the current portfolio company you are bullish about, and then one or two company, and then why you made an investment in them.
Sure. So as mentioned, we are an early stage fund. We have been investing actively, but I think contrary to most of the other VCs, we don't invest in large number of companies. So far, we have 5 active portfolio companies that is under our current fund. We are in the midst of closing 3 more deals over the next 2 months. Out of the 5 companies, 3 of them are in Malaysia, originally from Malaysia, and 2 of them are from Indonesia. Now, I say originally from Malaysia because they have already expanded beyond their market, and they're growing extremely well as well. To draw some examples, we have a company from Malaysia called Carsum. Carsum, there are similar models around the world as well. Even in Korea, there's also a company called Hey Dealer, which is a similar model. What we do at the very beginning was a C2B platform. We help consumers to sell their cars, and those cars will be sold to used car dealers. And from there, they expanded the business to become a financing platform where we work with banks, financial institutions to offer working capital financing for the dealers for buying cars on our platform. And now we have expanded the business in such a way where besides doing C2B, we are also doing C2C, so B2C. So buyers from, let's say if you're interested to buy a second-hand car, you can actually go to Shopee or Lazada in Malaysia to buy a used car from Carsum. The best thing about Carsum is that we inspect every single vehicle that comes on board. That's why we have another business on academy and inspection as well. So Carsum has Carsum certification on used cars that has been inspected and guaranteed in terms of quality by Carsum. At the same time, we're also training out inspectors as well as mechanics that can become part of our company to help us inspect vehicles and also to become mechanics for other companies as well. So for them, they have been doing very well. We invested in them about 2 years ago. They have closed their Series C and D round after us. The most recent round was done by Asia Partners. Asia Partners is a PE growth fund by Nick Nash, who was he was with C Group or Garena back then. And right before that, the company was funded by MUFG Japan as well as Daiwa Securities. So as a Malaysian company, they are successful because not just in Malaysia. In Malaysia, they are the number 1 platform, but they are also a number 1 platform in Thailand and Indonesia as well. So they are Southeast Asia's largest used car trading platform.
Yeah, I know personally. I know Carsum very well, but I didn't know that they expanded. Internationally in Southeast Asia. In fact, I sold my car through the Carsum.
Oh, really? Okay.
when I left Penang, customer experience as a customer is quite impressive. They are dealing very well, very smooth. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think that's a good feedback from you. I mean, we for custom, they have been focusing a lot on what the consumers actually get. In fact, right now we actually have experience center set up in different countries as well. So consumers who are interested to buy a used car, they can get to do a test drive through us before they actually buy the vehicles. So we are becoming like a Samsung for used car in a way,
Right.
like a better description.
Right.
Yeah. So that's one. The other one that I'm happy to share more is another company. This is from Indonesia. So this is the one that I mentioned that has evolved from travel tech to become a property tech company. It's called Travelio. We invested into their Series A round as the lead investor. I'm on the board of this company. And subsequently, they raised 2 more rounds. The most recent round was invested by Samsung Korea, as well as Vynn Capital, which is one of the sovereign fund from Singapore. So what they do at this stage is they have 2 main business models. One is the short stay business, where guests will come and stay for 1 night or 2 nights. And also we have a long stay business where we are also the property manager. So we manage the properties with exclusive contracts with the property developer or the homeowners, where we help them to lease it out. Q4, in fact, was the best quarter ever for Travelio, despite COVID in Indonesia. And for them, they are becoming more of a lifestyle platform, because besides providing a place for business travelers or even general Indonesians to stay, we are also offering our tenants grocery services as well. We have our own e-grocery business. We're actually building a lot more solutions, concierge, etc. as well, to help enhance the lifestyle of Indonesians and travelers who are actually staying on our platform. And for them, I'm proud to share that they are one of the most sustainable companies in our portfolio, where they don't actually need to raise funds any time soon, because they have been very effective and efficient in the way they operate their business. So these are the 2 companies that we are very proud of. But of course, we do have another one that's also from Malaysia, Droppy. It's a B2B platform. They help guys like Unilever, P&G to distribute their products, even Red Bull as well, to distribute their products to the SMEs and the mom and pop shops. But at the same time, besides having a marketplace, they also have a SaaS solution where guys, the larger MNCs or corporates like Petronas, British American Tobacco, would use them to manage their supply chain, to manage their procurement process. So that company is also growing very well, and they're looking at expanding to the second market pretty soon. And plus, they are actually the second company that graduated from Y Combinator and got fundraised a new round mid of last year from investors from US, China, and Japan.
At the website, you talk about the collaboration between your LP and the portfolio company, right?
Yeah.
So on high level, I can understand. On the ground level, what is actual things Vynn Capital assisting its investor LP, it's a portfolio company of yours?
Sure. So I think the easiest, so that there's a few layers of collaboration that we always explore with LPs. But to understand that, I think first of all, I need to explain that actually half of our funds currently come from private markets, as in private capital from family offices and from corporates. And these are generally corporates or LPs that has similar business exposure to what we have invested so far. In terms of the strategy, in terms of the industry that we are focusing on. So our LPs has either direct or indirect exposure to the 4 industries that we focus on. So when we talk about helping our LPs, providing value to our LPs, first of all, the easiest one is to actually co-invest with our LPs. In certain deals of ours, we actually co-invested and invited and co-invested with our LPs. And this provides a new domain knowledge for our LPs, because we got some, for example, we had an Indonesian LP of ours to invest with us into a Malaysian company. And that gives them a new knowledge base, because they have never invested overseas into Malaysia yet. So that's one, the co-investment part. The other part is to explore on partnerships between them and our portfolio companies. When one of our, at this point of time, I don't want to share exact examples yet, but when our company works on expanding into a new market, we work with our portfolio company to collaborate with our local LPs in the other market to explore partnership as well as support. So our LPs would, besides acting as an investor to our fund, they also act to explore business opportunity with our portfolio companies as well. Our idea moving in the future is really to enable our LPs to eventually become a VC on their own as well. This is what we call VC as a service. So ideally, we want to enable our LPs, all our LPs, to eventually do direct investments into early stage companies. Of course, we are more than happy to continue to be next to our LPs to help them to understand this asset class and to understand a bit more about other markets as well.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea, great idea. Also, when the companies, company in Asia, when they go overseas to expand the business in overseas market, and in fact, that's a very hard, difficult job because they don't have experience, a lot of experience in the international market. Working together, collaborating with the portfolio companies, and they can decrease the risk of expansion. Yeah.
Exactly. And plus, LPs are very interested in seeing how startups actually work, because most of them are not in the tech industry. So for them, if they work with the startups directly, they learn more about the digital landscape, they learn more about the technology industry, and who knows, there could be a way for traditional businesses to work with startups to actually have a bridge between the traditional and the new economy.
Recently, I saw the interesting phenomenon. A lot of international BPO business, they are moving to the Malaysia because they can easily hire the multilingual speaker from Malaysia, right? Chinese,
Yeah.
Fuji, and Hokkien. So many languages, right? You Cantonese and
Exactly.
English. So that is a one-stop solution. You don't need to hire the Indian for English and Chinese for Chinese, right? Something like that.
Exactly. I think that's the advantage that the Malaysia as a market that we have. We're definitely versatile, and I think the opportunity is still quite vast in Malaysia, because in the past most investors has been focusing on other markets like Indonesia, in Vietnam, or obviously in Singapore, and Malaysia is now an empty space where it's up to whoever who's going to come in to conquer the market. So I think from that perspective, it's definitely a worthwhile market for investors to look at. That's why we invest a lot into Malaysia as well, because we believe that Malaysian companies have the capability and has one of the highest chances to actually create regional companies just like Grab.
Do you know that the Korean company called Kowei, they're manufacturing, they're selling the water purifier and air filter, right?
Yes.
So they are very interesting to hear that their annual their sales reached $1 billion only in Malaysia.
Wow. Okay, that's
So,
impressive.
yeah, very impressive, because my personal experience, Malaysian consumer market, of course, in terms of population, much smaller than Indonesia, Thailand, other countries. So I thought it is not easy to achieve that scale of annual sales in Malaysia, but very interestingly, they reached $1 billion.
Yeah,
Biggest overseas market for Kowei.
I see. I think it was partly because of the product. I mean, Kowei has pretty good brand reputation as well, and the product is good. And plus, in Malaysia, our spending power is also quite strong. Obviously, ringgit is not as strong as Singapore dollar, but in general, Malaysians spending basket, spending power is actually pretty healthy as well. Because if you look at Indonesia, for example, the spending basket power is still lower. GDP per capita is still lower, obviously because of the high population. But in general, Malaysia is a slightly more developed market compared to Indonesia, but it's still behind Singapore. That's why we have the growth opportunity over here.
Yeah, but another thing, of course, Malaysian purchasing power, GDP per capita is much higher than other Southeast Asian country except for Singapore, right?
Yes.
But my impression, I thought that the Malaysian people are very frugal. They are not aggressive in the spending, right? Maybe that's a more tendency, right? Not culture, not about the purchasing power, income. Like Indonesia, they even though the GDP per capita is much lower than Malaysia, if we go to the high end, the shopping mall, the restaurant in the Jakarta, they are always busy, right? I mean,
yes,
luxury restaurant. So I thought it's Malaysian is more there, saving more money rather than the spending money. So in that sense, I thought maybe it's not a good market for the consumer luxury goods, something like that. But the story of Kuwait, that's my personal opinion. I may be wrong. But the story of Kuwait, quite surprising.
Yeah. Well, it could maybe because of the fact that Kuwait is from Korea and Malaysians love Korean products. That's why it's also selling as well.
Yes, maybe. Yeah. How has COVID-19 impacted your investment approach or opened the opportunity for your business investment?
Sure. When COVID first started, as most VCs would do, is we went back to our portfolio companies to check on things, to follow up, to see how's everyone doing, whether there's any support that's needed. It turns out it wasn't really surprising, but it was a pleasant discovery that actually most of our companies are growing because of COVID. The likes of Droppy, for example, they're bringing FMCG transactions online. The whole volume of digital transactions has more than doubled, maybe triple and quadrupled over the last 9 months or 12 months because of the fact that people are not, they're not moving around that much. So online consumption has increased. So overall, COVID has been favorable to most of my portfolio companies. Even those that are directly in the travel segment, thankfully we have diversified the business into other industries as well, which is always the investment philosophy for Vynn. And I think for us, COVID is almost like another way for us to enhance our progress. In other words, I think we have not changed much of our investment strategy. We are actually going to do the same thing over the next couple of years as well. Same thing in the sense where I think it's simply because I believe that venture capital investment is a long-term game. If you are investing and changing your strategy every 6 months, every 12 months, you are trading. That's more for public markets. Whereas for VC as an asset class, it's a long-term asset that needs. You are investing in a 10-year trend, 20-year trend that's supposed to be sustainable enough, even amidst a black swan event. So for us, I think we have done well in designing an investment strategy that works well even during COVID.
Okay, let me ask a last question. How are you planning on your professional trajectory? Please tell me about your long-term plan with the Vynn Capital and beyond the Vynn Capital as well.
Sure. So for Vynn Capital at this stage, we are happy with our portfolio companies. Obviously, over the long term, I wouldn't say long term. Over the next medium, but over the medium term, we are planning to raise another fund to ride on the growth of this current portfolio that we have. So our second fund, we are planning to raise it maybe towards later part of the year or so, which we will start engaging in potential LPs soon enough, because we still have a bit of time for our current fund as well. So investors can still invest into our current fund. But for me, if you ask me, my ambition for Vynn is to ultimately to go with what I set off to do, to enable more investors to invest into startups and tech companies, which means Vynn Capital will focus a lot on helping our LPs to become VC on their own. This is what I mentioned just now, VC as a service. As a VC firm, we definitely want to have more funds to invest into the right companies, to have differentiated strategy that works for long term. But at the same time, I do think that the VC industry should change, should evolve, which is why I want to encourage more traditional investors to become investor into this new economy as well. That's why for us, when we work with LPs, one of the advantage that we provide our LPs is that we would eventually help them to do direct investments. So VC as a service will be my long-term plan, so that we can actually help more and more family offices and corporates to do a lot more CVC work as well.
So basically, you want to position the Vynn Capital as a concierge for your LP and the investors. So growing the common interest bigger and bigger over time. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's very accurate.
Thank you so much for taking time and sharing your story today.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me, David.